Hi, it's Lynn, your adulting coach. I know that we're here because we want to help our graduates handle stress so that they feel better and can get a job that helps them earn money to fuel their life and all the other benefits of working, and just run their life in their own way, in a way that helps them, that they feel proud about what they're accomplishing. And I think it's possible. And today what I want to do is introduce you to Holly Bridges. She wrote a wonderful book quite a while ago called Reframe Your Thinking Around Autism. And I read it about 4 years ago and found it quite innovative and unique. And then during the pandemic, she shared an awful lot of what she teaches for free. So I was able to really learn more about it then. And I'm just so grateful. I practiced both of the activities that she uses with her clients in my own home over many years now, and have found them to be useful. And I'd like to explain her thinking as best as I can, really just to inspire you to go check out her work and to notice that she's got quite a few YouTube videos that can help us really get what she's coming at. So she's autistic and a therapist. And when I read her book, I found these 7 takeaways. The first is that mindfulness and breathing techniques alone don't work for so many people, especially those that are autistic. They're just not enough. And cognitive therapies only take us so far as well, because they're so brain-based. They're so, we're all up in our heads. And for sure, the coercive exercises just fail, because no one likes to be told what to do. And to notice that executive function and working memory and social skills and all of those higher level functions are greatly influenced by the nervous system. It's not just how we think, it's how we also feel in our body. The good news is that brain plasticity allows us to renegotiate how we operate in the world. I know that there's a big open window before age 7, but so many of our kids were diagnosed later in life, and it's just good to know that our brain can be changed, and it really notices the nervous system and how it's informing it. So for the rest of our lives, we have room to grow with our brain. She argues that working with the body, getting the body in a calm state, gives us access and control over our mental, emotional, and often our social states as well. So creating a safe body space improves coordination, communication, and self-regulation at any age. So I think this is a part of how we help our graduates handle their stress so that they feel better and can do more of what they want and build the life that's really the one that they want. She argues that traditional autism therapies are just in the wrong jungle. They're highly directive, they're very specific toward goals, and yes, okay, they do have that stamp of approval by so many insurance companies, so we use them, and we've all read the controversy around them. And she suggests that there's a better way, and that the autistic person can help guide us there. That so much of the industry is built on working, trying to figure out what's going on and kind of working our way through the undergrowth, and it's based on outdated modalities and procedures. And it's backed up by, policy procedure manuals and all kinds of evidence-based practicing, but it's just not the best practice. Here's what she suggests we do instead, is that we help the individual find a safe place in their body and help them be able so that they can access more of their brain, so that there's a lot of information coming from the body up to the brain that allows it to access various functions. And some are really shut down when we're in that fight or flight state. she questions our definition of autism. What is it anyway? And we tend to define it as deficits or restrictions or just problems with the way that the individual, relates to society. She suggests, why are we doing that? There's a whole world of wonderness in an autistic brain. They can do more things better, some things better than any, and more things better if we let them, if we encourage them to access all that wonderful brain power that they have. Now, this research came out just a couple of years ago, and the videos that I've been watching of Holly are a couple of years old, so I'm not sure that she's had this research, but it does show, of course, that there are brain changes in both the high-level regions involving reasoning, language, social behavior, mental flexibility, and sensory processing. So there's a biological difference between, this was a research study that looked at 750 samples of autistic brains versus a not autistic brain, and came to these conclusions in a peer-reviewed journal article. So it just suggests that there's different wiring, which, that's the reason why the behavior looks different. And here's her main argument is that working with the body works for autistic people, that often we just talk and try to get the brain to line up, and that there's a lot going on between the brain and the body that we need to access if we want to help them. She says cognitive behavioral management is excellent at sorting things out with the thinking, but it just leaves a whole half of us, from the neck down, out of the equation, and we need to include it. That there's some self-regulating strategies that we put together with the red, yellow, and green zone, and a lot of autistic people tell her that I understand it, but I just can't apply it when things go haywire. Instead of this focus on behavior and outcomes and how we are to other people and our own self-management, which is all pretty much at the intellectual level, she suggests that anxiety, the state that we find ourselves in, and we see our autistic graduates in often, is a body state. And so we need to address it at the body level. That 90% of what's going on when anxiety is happening is at the physical level and a lot less at the intellectual level. Our bodies operate without us being in charge. That's a good thing, because then they we can breathe. Our digestive systems, a lot of other systems in our body are not directed by our intellect. And we need to notice too that when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, a lot of our intellectual capabilities are shut down. So that's what causes that kind of immobilized behavior that we see, that deer in the headlights look, that let me go to my room where I feel safe and be on a screen so that I don't have to face the discomfort of being in that shutdown state. It's really important to notice that what they're trying to do is just feel better more often. And when they try to understand what goes on, often it just doesn't, we haven't given them the language, the awareness of what's going on in their body, but they just feel like they've failed, which is another failure on top of others that we tend to focus on, and that labels them and creates a lot of shame. So she suggests that autism is a lot about the body. We know that evidence suggests that we've got lots of gut problems, digestion problems, aversions to taste, food intolerances, gluten, whatever, lactose, sensory things that happen where many of the autistic graduates that I know have to have comfortable clothes, that sense of balance, that sense of where am I in space, and that touch thing where you just don't, sometimes if they're in a shutdown state, the last thing they want is more sensory input, so don't touch them. And a pain intolerance, I've got to get out of this painful situation because I just can't tolerate it. Good to know. So that results often in, we see these results with autistic people more than we do with the non-autistic population. Diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, bowel disease, eating disorders, anxiety, depression, and substance abuse, which is just overdoing it to try to feel better. All those things tend to be comorbid often with autistic individuals. So the answer she suggests is within the Polyvagal theory by Dr. Stephen Porges, and he endorses her work, and she's in touch with him on a regular basis. He worked originally with the autistic population and now is working more with the general population, but his research really backs up what Holly practices. So here it is in a nutshell. The body has a learned response to pain and fear and can go into an involuntary shutdown as a safety mechanism. So it can either be a shutdown or a meltdown, where it's just, you've got to give me space, you've got to get me out of this situation, and I'm going to make it loud and clear that this is not working for me. She explains what's going on with polyvagal theory in such a wonderfully accessible way. She says on the right side of the equation, we're in the parasympathetic system. Sometimes it helps us to think of a parachute, helps me that it's nice and soft and calm. This is when the social engagement system can turn on, and we're all connected beautifully with our eyes, our ears, our voice, and our heart. That's where we want to be more often. And what happens is when there's some kind of stimulant either in the environment or inside of us, we can go down to that immobilized state, the sympathetic state. And there's a whole sliding scale of room here. But when we are immobilized, our body does that on purpose because our brain has told it that there is a threat, the lion in the bush. And it takes all of our body systems and it focuses on that threat. So our eyes are focused, our brain is focused, our body is, different systems are turned off, digestion, our ears are focused just on that threat. And that's where we find our graduates often when we take them into situations where they just feel overloaded. So you can see that there are 12 cranial nerves that go into this polyvagal nerve, and it regulates our smell, our vision, our eye movement, our hearing, the information to the brain about what's happening with our face and our mouth, the adrenal, abducers, which are eye movement sideways, lots of things going on with the sensory input, the facial nerves, the vestibular, cochlear, which is hearing and balance, vagus nerve, which is involved in everything, the sensory motor autonomic functions like glands and digestion and the heart rate. That's what's happening, when we're focusing on that threat. Our heart rate goes up and our breathing goes up. The spinal, the head turning muscles, and the hypoglossal, which is our tongue and our speech and our swallowing. And I know in our family that there was a lot of speech therapy that happened because some of the development of helping the language be developed, the way that the speaking was interfered with by having an autistic brain and often being in that fight or flight situation. So the vagus nerve, she says, and Stephen Porges backs her up, goes from both bottom up and top down. It has a busload of information that it's trying to help us assimilate and figure out what to do next. And that vagus nerve influences our kidneys, our gallbladder, our colon, our bladder, and our gut. All of those things, and the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenals, that whole hormonal stimulation of oxytocin and social connection, all of that, especially when we're in a good place, that can help support, social connection. It also protects the nerves by producing more myelin and helps us to feel safe and resilient. And without it, we quickly short circuit. So the new vagus system, we want to help it be as often as possible in that happy place where the old vagus system is constantly on alert or frozen. Serotonin is definitely affected. It's a neurotransmitter that gives us that deep peaceful state, and it's very much involved in mood, anxiety, psychosis, and that's where a lot of our medications are targeted. And then the dopamine, the excitement, we're on the right track. All of this is influenced by that vagus nerve, and it's synthesized in the brain and the kidneys, plus half of it in the gut as well. So very much affected by the same, by the systems in our body, determines what kinds of brains, or what kinds of hormones are secreted are told to be secreted by our brain. So when we have our digestive system on, that's when we're in that happy vagal nerve state, and then when it's seized, that's when we're not. So it's not too hard to figure out why the digestive system is very involved. So it suggests that 80% of our sensory information goes up to the brain. So attending to what's happening in our body helps our brain function better. So when we are overstimulated by too much, that's when we can go into a shutdown, and we want to do what we can to get to a calm state where we teach our gut and our brain to read sensory information in the body in a positive way, where we are effective at figuring out what's going on with our bodies so that our brain can interpret it in a productive way. So we want to teach people with autism how to feel like this, in that calm, happy state. And we need to be in that calm, happy state, because if we're not, they pick up on it pretty well. And we can co-regulate with them so that both of our bodies and their bodies are in a good place. A lot of it involves unlearning the responses that we've taught ourselves for a very long time. And when we stay centered on the student, that's when we can make real change happen. She argues that looking at movement with attention, being slow, being more subtle, being more aware, staying with flexible goals that are varied so that our brain is interested in them, with lots of access to our imagination and our dreams and our enthusiasm and our belief, turns that learning switch on when we use the body to make this happen. So instead of, and just paying attention to what are they fascinated by, what are they learning by, what are their thoughts, tuning into what's really happening inside of them, we can help go from this, frozen state to a much more flexible, open state. And of course, that's what we want for all of our autistic graduates, where the information flows up and down. So there are 2 activities that she uses in her therapy that I have also used in our family. One of them is it's just a simple fitness ball. You lie on the floor, you put your feet on the ball, and you knead it like a kitten needs their mama's body when they're nursing. Just knead it gently for a couple of minutes, and then we set it down. And then we put it back up again, and we gently make it happen. Just gently kneading, and then back down, and then back up again, and then gently kneading, just as many times. It's such a wonderful, peaceful feeling when we lay flat and have that gentle motion. It tells our brain that things are okay. And the other activity that she suggests is a hand massage, where we massage the key points where the nerves end in our hands. And here's the diagram of it so that you can see that we rub it 6 to 9 times, and then we hold it there for about a half a minute to a minute, and then we release. We just keep going around our hand and rubbing and then holding and then release, and just gently, soothingly, slowly move all around our hand in a way that helps our brain relax. Notice that both of these techniques just help the body know that it's safe. And I'm going to go back to one of the first pictures that I showed you, which was her approach. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, the fellow that's doing that ball activity is Danny Reed from Asperger Experts. Holly is the only person that he endorses. He believes that her therapies help autistic people, and that by using them, we can move from that protective space, that defended space, to a connected space. I think he's got, he's very discerning. She's the only one that he believes can help our autistic graduates. So I really want to encourage you to visit her websites, and I will, her videos, and I will link to those in the show notes here. And I really want us to remember that often when our autistic graduates are just in a meltdown or a shutdown, they're not being willful. Often it's their nervous system that is just overwhelmed. So I hope that this overview of Holly's work has helped you notice and get curious about a whole nother way of thinking about how to help our autistic graduates handle stress so that they can connect better with the world and with us and build the life that they want. Bye for now.